everyone, and welcome to my reading of the 64 Ways by Richard Rudd. It's a excuse me. I'm still getting over a little bit of a cold. It's a contemplation of the gene keys. And real quick, I just want to go ahead and celebrate the divinity inside of myself and inside of you as well with my crystals. And show gratitude for anyone who shows up to this live stream and who is a part of this. I greatly appreciate you. I am so grateful to you for being here with me. All right, so we're on Gene Key 3, the way of innovation. Shadow, chaos. Dilemma, clinging. Gift, innovation. City, innocence. Programming partner, Gene Key 50. Codon ring, the ring of life and death. The transformational way of the third gene key moves from chaos to innocence, and it's the way of innovation. The essence of the whole I Ching is the nature of change itself. It's usually translated as the Book of Changes. Yet because we humans find change so difficult, this hexagram is translated as difficulty at the beginning. No matter who or what we are, we're subject to constant change. It's been said, by the Buddha in fact, that the only constant is change, impermanence. When we let that truth in, it's very uncomfortable, at least at the beginning. This gene key is all about the process of letting change in. We have to let it into our heart, body, and soul. This is a contemplation on change. We can see here that the dilemma is clinging. We naturally cling to the structures around us when change comes. Structure gives us the illusion of security. This is what most people do. We try to cling to our relationships, our marriages, our possessions, our habits, our routines. It sort of works for a bit, but the big spoiler is death. I mean, death really screws everything up. It's the biggest reminder of the truth. For years, we can be humming along in our own little world, absorbed with our lives, lost in our suffering, shuttling between pain and pleasure, until sooner or later, along comes death. It reminds me of a story. I was with a very wise old man, and we had taken a substance together, a mind-altering substance. We were sitting there together, gazing at this wonderful view. We had been talking sporadically, and then every now and again, a silence just descended on us. And each time it happened, we gave ourselves up to it. In the middle of one of these sweeping silences, suddenly out of the blue, came the words, "All roads lead to death." My friend had spoken them, and after a moment of recoil, we just started laughing. We laughed and laughed, a deep belly laugh. I'm still laughing many years later, and that feels like a healthy and authentic response to the nature of change. We have to let it in deeply. It has to get past some resistance, some clinging. There's a lot of clinging in us. Our lives are surrounded by anchor points. Some of our greatest anchor points are our relationships. My greatest anchor points are undoubtedly my children. But can we love those who are closest to us and not cling to them? That is a great challenge. We tend to have clinging with the things we love the most. The clinging actually creates interference. When we cling, it's because we haven't quite moved into unconditional love. We create chaos. This is the shadow of chaos. It's chaos because the love is tainted by fear. When we contemplate this gene key, we can look at our anchor points. Our jobs, relationships, homes, clothes, bodies. All these things give us the illusion of stability. When we're threatened with losing one of our anchor points, it shows us our clinging. It shows us the hidden chaos. It doesn't create the chaos. It shows us that it's already there. We often think of chaos as a hurricane or a tempest or something awful, but it's often very subtle. It's an undercurrent. It's an anxiety, a nervousness, a deep and hidden fear inside. Just seeing our anchor points begins to change our relationship to the world around us. We'll begin to realize them. We'll begin to pull up those anchors and it won't feel safe, not in the beginning. It's difficult. It's terrifying. We'll feel a deep discomfort in our stomach, our belly. It's the chaos. It's the vibration of our attachment, our clinging. Let us imagine ourselves without any anchor points. Who are we? What are we? Do we have a name? Can we let that one go as well? That's the question of this gene key. It cuts deep inside us. We can see how it's connected to its programming partner, the 50th gene key, corruption. We're corrupted. We aren't who we really are. We're clinging to all these illusory anchors. At the other end of the spectrum is harmony, the 50th city. So we have harmony and chaos. Chaos is the process of coming back into harmony. We have to enter deeply into the chaos inside. We have to dig into the cellular memories, the false belief systems, the mind maps, the emotional fixations, the desires. And this grand illusion we call the ego, the sense of I. I recommend we go deeply into this gene key and contemplate our anchor points. Let our awareness dig out the roots. There's something magical in this gene key, and it's love. Clinging is just incomplete love. It's love that hasn't quite gone the whole way yet. Just love a bit more deeply. Unconditional love vaporizes the anchor points. It dissolves them. Just making sure that my microphone is still on. Love releases the clinging, and it emerges as we see the clinging. It's a two-way street. As we feel the chaos, so the love emerges from behind it, from inside it. If we have this gene key prominent in our profile, then our whole life's lesson is to love more and not run away, which is the shadow pattern. The third shadow wants to change the outer in order not to feel unsafe. It tries to create another anchor before the old one gives way. What a thankless task that is. We're projecting our inner chaos onto our outer life, which is awful. Contact the places within where the tremor of chaos comes to the fore. Cultivate that habit. It feels unpleasant, but after a while, more love grows as we root out the weeds. And remember, we needn't run away. Changing the circumstances on the outside isn't going to help. It will just be a distraction. We need to be courageous and uproot the fears. They're right inside us. We'll find a new life emerging, a new gift, a sense of spaciousness and laughter. There's so much laughter within this gene key. We just need a little courage to go within through contemplation, self-inquiry, meditation, intuition. Take heart, because the difficulty is only in the beginning. But most people never begin this work, and it's not surprising. Who willingly goes into chaos and discomfort? Well, be the one who does. Be the valiant warrior. It's there anyway. It just needs to come to the surface, and then everything becomes easier. The third gift, innovation. The essence of the evolutionary impulse is this: in order to survive, life must embrace change. It must adapt and innovate. Everything in the universe is spinning. All the spheres, all the stars, every photon, every cell, every atom, they all have a whirlpool at their core. Life breathes change into its lungs and exhales innovation. This is a beautiful subject to contemplate. Think about nature. There's this truth we've all heard that nature abhors a vacuum, and yet this is the origin of innovation. Out in my garden, if I cut down a small bush and then immediately something else starts growing there, something adapts itself and springs into that space. It's a miracle. I sometimes do this experiment in my house. We have this beautiful big kitchen where almost everything goes on in our house, and in the middle is this big table, like most kitchens. My aesthetic sense really enjoys coming into that room and seeing a clear table. Just the beauty of the wood and the cleanness of the space. You know what I mean? But I have 3 children, and the moment they see an empty table, some gene inside them just goes, "Quick! Get something on that table. This isn't right." This is my experiment, and you'd be amazed at the amount of stuff that comes pouring out of the cupboards onto that empty table. And then, of course, they forget to put it away. But that's another story. Now, this may not be how we normally think of innovation, but it is how it works. Life constantly needs to expand, experiment, and then maybe make a breakthrough or not. Think of all the innovations that fail. You know, when I was a boy, I had this book about innovations that had failed. It's hilarious, flying machines with flapping wings and things like that. The very nature of innovation is to keep failing until there's success. Hence the passing through chaos phase. The first thing about this third gift is that we have to be okay with chaos. We can't be freaked out by chaos. If we don't embrace chaos, then we'll have a very difficult life. It's why this gene key has a lot to do with the inner child and with children, because children embrace chaos so effortlessly. We adults, we all have children inside us somewhere. We have some water, coffee, and a little bit of my vape. I find Richard Rudd's contemplations so interesting. I love how he sees things. The third gift is about reawakening that spirit of youthful play inside. It really helps to spend some time. Excuse me. I feel like I have something on my lip. Ah, it's uncomfortable. It really helps to spend some time around children if we have this gift or are contemplating it. The way a young child plays is so exquisite, especially on their own. My young daughter was upstairs this morning with all her beads and counters and buttons, and she was sorting them into boxes and bags, and her toy panda was buying them. They had become sweets and lollies and things like that. She was just lost in this world. It's captivating. She's just innovating unconsciously. What innovation often does it take something it's seen like that and then repeats it but in a new way? And as it's repeating it, it stumbles spontaneously onto a new idea. That's exactly how DNA replication works. Mutations are innovations. Some might say they're mistakes, but that's adding a judgment. They're simply changes. What then makes a successful innovation as opposed to an unsuccessful one? Well, think about our bodies. Innovation is going on there all the time. The miracle of our body has come about because of innovation. Cells dividing, subdividing, splitting, replicating, trying out new patterns, and so on and on. We are an evolutionary machine. Sometimes the innovations don't work. That's what cancer is. It's the cutting edge of the innovation. It can eventually kill the organism. If we give life enough time, it will eventually work out how to create an immortal body. Individual bodies are its experimental ground. If some die along the way, that's part of the price evolution has to pay to perfect itself. We have to realize that this is what evolution is doing. We may think it's random, but most people who have studied anything in depth will tell you that's impossible. It's as though life has a goal in mind and it will relentlessly pursue that goal. It's the same with the acorn. The acorn has a goal. It has a pattern that it works towards and it innovates, and if the conditions are right, it will eventually become an oak tree. Life itself is that acorn. It has a hidden plan, and that plan is to perfect itself, to attain physical immortality. That's something to ponder. And you know what? The only way to get there is by coordination, by working in harmony. That's the problem with those cancer cells. They go against the whole. Or do they? In the bigger picture, maybe they actually provide the key. Life needs to know how not to do it so that it can then succeed and have a breakthrough. We humans are in the midst of this game. We're a part of life's plan. Life has to engineer its own spontaneous breakthroughs, and we're one of those, and we'll go so much further. If this current race of humans doesn't manage it, then another race of creatures will spring up in our place in a few billion years. Life can't be stopped. It will stop short of nothing but God. The secret of innovation is coherence. We have to create a pocket of coherence in the chaos. When we do that, we bring order to the chaos, and the more coherence we create, the more organized the cosmos becomes. The order actually exists already within the chaos, just as the city exists inside the shadow, or the oak within the acorn. It's all just enfolded, and innovation is the unfolding mechanism. It looks random, but it isn't. It all follows a pattern and a timing. How do we apply this in our life? How can we create this coherence around us? One of the best ways is to get in touch with the ideal inside us. The ideal is where we're heading. Contemplate the cities. Contemplate them over and over, just as the acorn contemplates the oak tree through its every tiny innovation. Let our whole life be a passage. Thank you so much for the like. I appreciate that. Thank you for that comment, or for that live chat, excuse me. The ideal is where we're heading. Contemplate the cities, contemplate them over and over, just as the acorn contemplates the oak tree through its every tiny innovation. Let our whole life be a passage of perfection towards that city, without ever needing to leave the present moment. We're allowed awareness over and over to the oak tree. It won't be the same oak tree that will become, because ours is just an echo, a future memory still to come. But the impulse is true. Let our joyous unfolding be creative. When we contemplate the cities, we'll feel a great upsurge of creativity. We'll naturally begin innovating as our energy transforms the raw material of the shadow state into a higher coherence. Innovation feels so good. It's so delightful. It's a good addiction, and this gene key does have a bit of an addictive character to it, in common with the 24th gene key that is part of the same codon ring. This is good addiction, especially when it's put into the service of a high ideal. Innovation without that high ideal can easily become a cancer. As we see so often in the world around us, we see how many of our scientific innovations, brilliant though they are actually destroying the world we love. That's because they're not rooted in a high ideal. Use the tremendous creative energy of this gene key and pour it into an ideal, because that's the only way it won't drive us mad. The third city, innocence. I was listening to a physicist the other day, and he was postulating how a universe like ours might come to be created. He said that this universe most likely came out of another universe, which made me chuckle in itself. He said that all it would take is for a single proton to escape the event horizon of one universe and enter into the deep void. That single proton, when faced with the immensity of that nothingness, would just delight in its own expansion and give birth to another universe. It's like my kitchen table, you see. Life is unstoppable. I live in the beautiful, rich, rolling countryside of South Devon in England. A greener place it's hard to imagine. Devon is famous for its farm products, in particular its dairy products, cream, milk, butter. These fields full of cows are such a bucolic sight, like Eden. The cows with their tails swishing and they lazily drift from field to field. It's very peaceful. Every now and again, the farmer opens up a new field when they've eaten all the grass in the old one. I don't know if you've ever seen this, but it's an incredible sight. These cows, they just go crazy with excitement. You know, a lush, untouched new pasture, green and inviting. It's their idea of heaven. And these huge and usually placid creatures turn into great huge puppies. They rush, prance, and climb on each other, and jump and kick in the air. They're a lesson in ecstasy. That's the third gene key. That's the third city. The unutterable joy of play, of filling the void with our dance, our voice, our presence. While we're on England's green pastures, I want to tell you about William Blake, a wonderful English painter and poet. He was an early English ecstatic, a deep, deep mystic. He wrote these poem cycles called the Songs of Innocence and the Songs of Experience. They're wonderful, short pastiches of rural and urban life with this motif running underneath. It's all about innocence and the loss of innocence, but then the final regaining of innocence through the search for the divine. That final innocence is even more exquisite than the firstborn innocence, if you know what I mean. Read these poems if you get the chance. So there are two kinds of innocence. Ignorant innocence that's like a newborn baby, the creature that just expresses its beauty without awareness of itself. Then there's the wise innocence, like the old man or lady whose mind and heart has opened up again after a long search with much pain and travail. This wise innocence and this ignorant innocence, they're the same field. The city is in the shadow. The only difference is awareness. Wise innocence has come full circle. It's why grandparents and grandchildren have such a strong bond. It's why little babies look like old people and why old people often become very childlike again. What about the rest of us in the middle? I hear you say. Well, we're the journey. We're Blake's poems. We're that passage. We don't have to wait until we're old to be wise. Wisdom is not dependent on age. Wisdom is dependent on love. How deeply can we love? How far can we expand our love into the green meadows of life? Life is an unraveling. It's already complete, even though it's still in the process of unraveling. Can we be both? Can we be both its beginning and its end? Can we be awake in the dream that is the middle? The ancients called life a leela, a play. It's a good translation of the word because the word play means both a piece in theater, a drama, and also playfulness. They're both needed. We can't make a joke about everything in the middle. There's so much suffering, so much tragedy, so much injustice. It's hard to be playful in the face of most of what goes on in this planet, but the playfulness, the innocence, is of the inner awareness. That's where the dance is. We may be grieving on the outside, but on the inside there's an awareness of the play unfolding. It gives you a little distance. This gene key is a part of the codon ring of life and death, of living and dying. These 6 gene keys, they are the gene keys of the drama of life. The 24th gene key is our addiction to the drama and the eternal recreation of the drama, the samsara. The 23rd gene key is the evolutionary impulse towards complexity before finally coming back to simplicity and finding its essence once again. The 27th gene key is the human story of that, as we move from selfishness to selflessness. Thank you so much for the like. I appreciate that. Hey, Mac, how are you, hun? And the 42nd gene key of celebration is the ending just as the 3rd is the beginning. We have to let go of expectation along the way. We know the ending, but we also don't know how it's going to get there. That's the mystery part. That's the beauty. That's the play. The play's the thing wherein I'll catch the conscience of the king. I love that line from Hamlet when he puts on a play within the play to trick his father into giving away his guilt. It's beautiful, because of course we're watching this play within the play with the rising sense that it's a tragedy. And in this ring of living and dying, who's watching us? The 20th gene key, divine presence, when it awakens, when it's time, when the curtain comes down and the audience becomes aware of itself once again, presence arises. It's like that feeling in the theater when the lights go back on. We kind of rub our eyes, look around, and remember where we are. Through this ring of living and dying, the lights will come on one day. One day the innocence of everything will reawaken to itself. It happens in the individual, and the individual realizes it's all an illusion. One day it will also happen to the whole. In the meantime, we're in the Maya, the Leela, the divine play. As our awareness begins to grow inside, we surrender our attachment to the outcome. We know the grand outcome anyway. We know the curtain will go up. Why worry about the twists and turns of the subplots? It's all the twists and turns of the serpentine third city as it spontaneously explores the cosmic meadow. This is why it's about death, because that's what we're here to transcend. We are even here to transcend our awareness. Only consciousness is deathless. Only consciousness is outside the movie. When it remembers that, it giggles. It inwardly giggles. And then it falls into silence. That's the 24th city. What the hell am I going to say? I'm not going to stand up in the middle of the play and shout out to everyone, "Hey everyone, it's just a play." So the third city just says, maybe I'd better be quiet. Maybe I'd better just play along. And so we let the Tao unfold. We let nature go on exploring itself, and we come to deep innocence and deep surrender. The game is over, but the play still goes on. What a mystery, what a wonder. To be love, that's the thing, to be love. Every city ends the same way, without ending. The mind says, but there must be an ending, everything needs to end at some point. And the heart says, how can there ever be an ending? There's no such thing. We're not very familiar with the eternal because it lies beyond the lower mind. It's the domain of the higher mind, the heart mind, the domain of pure essential being. This is the harmony of the spheres, the programming partner here, that even chaos, even tragedy, is part of the harmony and part of the innocence. Everything is part of the everything. Okay, enough now. Let's enjoy the silence. All right, so on the next live stream that I do on the 64 ways, it will be about Gene Key 4, the way of understanding. Again, the reason that I'm doing this series on all these books is because I find it so incredibly helpful to myself, to my clients, and to people that really want to understand and find their true life's path. The 64 Ways is personal contemplations on the Gene Key. So these are Richard Rudd's actual personal contemplations on the Gene Keys, which he did create in and of himself because of human design. I have found so much help in human design. I have found so much help in the Gene Keys. And there's a lot of different books that he's written that I do readings on, because in case you don't have access to these books, or in case you're curious about human design or the Gene Keys, as well as all of my other videos that I do, then at least you get a little bit of a look and a taste into what this is all about. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and or join. It's popping off on all the tiers, and I am very excited to be able to bring to you new content with fresh eyes and from a place of authenticity. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your evening, and don't forget, be well and stay wild as well. I'll see y'all next time.